Basically, they love to have sayings. They love to say bottleneck. They love to say EOW. I hate it. And honestly, we all talk like that at some point.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Growth Mentors, the podcast where we share snackable growth hacks, strategies, and best practices in how to drive maximum marketing impact and grow your bottom line. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and what we're going to be talking about today is, for a lot of people, the most difficult part of digital marketing. It's the people part. How do you stay focused on the main goals of scaling your account and avoid becoming a cog in the machine? How do you navigate red tape, particularly with enterprise level clients? How do you determine which hill is worth dying on and which hill isn't? We're going to give you some really specific criteria to figure that out. And what does it mean to bring an authentic version of yourself to a professional setting, and what is the benefit? So we're going to do a little bit of a mindset check today, addressing your approach and your bedside manner, and it is not quite as fluffy as it sounds. It can really make a big impact on your relationships and therefore your accounts and scalability. So very excited to talk to my guest. She has 15 years experience and is currently the managing director of client leadership at Jump 450. Michelle Rose, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Matt, it's great meeting with you too. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
I wanted to talk to you about that sort of like people side of what we do, and maybe focus on some areas that you have sort of highlighted to be important in your day-to-day in running a team, in scaling an account, in keeping a group of people and marketers and business people together and sort of like moving in the right direction most efficiently. Yeah?
Yeah. And honestly, you said it right there. It's the team. It's the team that does all the work. I'm just here to make sure that the noise goes away. And that's when people ask me what I do for my job is to empower my team. My job is to make sure that the noise that they hear, the no's that they hear, the pushback that they get, I go out and I fight for them. And I'm also fighting side by side with them. So the team hired them because they're experts. They know what they're doing. They're smarter than me. So I want them to have their voice be heard. I want them to be on the front lines, talking to the clients, getting tests done, getting all of their incredible work and all their incredible ideas across the table. So I'm basically in place so that they can do that without hesitation, without a second thought, and just make sure that they do the great things that they can do because of their experience, because of their knowledge and their power.
Why don't we jump right in and talk about how to navigate red tape, particularly with enterprise level clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, the higher up you go with client levels, getting into enterprise level clients, there's a lot more red tape. The thing is that red tape looks different from a startup versus an enterprise level client. And honestly, with my experience, it's actually okay to break some red tape just to get your job done, because more than likely that red tape was set there years ago by someone who isn't even on the team anymore. So red tape limits people on how to take ownership, how to make calls, and also how to raise their hands. So when you've had just too much red tape, you become a corporate stooge. And like that's no fault of anybody's own. You just get taught, don't ask questions. Just do it the way that you're supposed to be doing it. And I actually challenge not only myself, but my entire team to question the why. And this is more important than ever, especially within digital marketing, because the ways of working with the algorithm change so frequently that the red tape policies from like 6 months ago are probably not even applicable to what's in the platform today. So I highly recommend people challenge it.
Yeah. Michelle, can you maybe cite a time when you've questioned the why, or maybe sort of zero in on why that's kind of the kernel that we're going after here?
Yes, absolutely. So not only as we go into a lot of our clients' platforms, especially when we're starting a relationship with them, we start to, dig into their accounts, look at how things are built and look at how things are structured. A lot of the times we'll ask the questions of like, hey, why do you have your brand campaigns like this? Or why are your ASC campaigns set up this way in Facebook? And they'll have an answer to it, but more likely than not, they'll just say, well, that's how the old agency did it. So that's a great reason to say, let's scrap whatever's not working and build it out correctly, and also provide the why as to why it's correct, so that when we go into the future and, either, the next person that comes along that's internal on their end, or even a new jumper comes in and asks for the why, we have that answer.
I think a lot of the pushback with red tape, or with sort of breaking the red tape, I should say, is that, a very common experience would be that, somebody sees a lot of red tape, they go in like a little bit of a maverick, they try to shake some things up, and it can just feel like this sort of never-ending cycle, or like it's always, maybe you move a couple of steps past it, and then all of a sudden you're back to zero or something. It can be a very sort of frustrating scenario to be in. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about which hill to die on, how to choose what hill you die on, and how you sort of choose, like, this is when I'm going to kind of like move with the status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when media buyers, especially when they get into the brand new accounts, they get really excited because they get to put their stamp on it. They get to change a bunch of things. They get to improve performance. But at the very end of the day, nobody wants to admit that everything is wrong within their account, or at least one tiny little thing is wrong within their account. So I always tell my team there's going to be multiple battles you'll want to fight, but not all of them are worth fighting for. So I tell them, ask these 3 questions to yourself in the moment, and you'll be able to determine if it's something that you want to continue to fight or not fight. So the first question that you have to ask yourself is, does this fight help further my performance, my efficiency, or ultimately the client's goal? 2, will this fight matter in 2 or 3 months, or will it just work itself out? Or number 3, is this about my needs or the client's needs? So with those 3 questions, you're able to immediately find out, is this something I'm willing to continue down the road with? Or with testing and data, or with policies, will this eventually work itself out?
Right. I love that criteria. Can you think of a scenario maybe that you've been in, a frustrating scenario where you've had to sort of choose your battle wisely?
There was a scenario where we generally use Slack for communications.
Yeah.
We use it because it's so efficient. We're able to add in files. We're able to automize things. And we're able to send data to our clients easily and hook up Tableau to everything. Essentially, we can automate a lot. There's been clients in the past that are diehard teams members, and they'd ask for a lot of these, solutions. So one of the hills that I tried to die on with a client was, if you come over the Slack as a free member, you can get a lot of this without lifting a lot of fingers. Or we can continue to send a lot of these emails of all this data, which takes more time, and then you don't get it as frequently or as fast as you want to.
Right.
So at the end of the day, whenever I think of a hill that I want to die on, it's a negotiation. You
Yeah.
have an end goal. They have an end goal. It's both the same. It's just how you get there. You're building the road to essentially say, how much materials do I want to spend money on in order to get this road built in order to get to my goal, which again is the same exact goal. It's just how to get there. So even though it's a lot of negotiation back and forth, like ultimately both yourself and the client are aiming for the same thing. It's just the how. So not only is it going to be a conversation of more education than anything, of like, this is why I want to build the road this way versus the way that they want to build the road. But it's also a negotiation of like, sure, you want to put in lines where I don't think that are necessary because it's just going down one straight road. So it's the horrible analogy, but that's kind of how I envision it. It's really, we're trying to get to the same goal at the very end of the day. It's just how we get there that matters.
Can you talk to us about saying no? It can be really hard to say no. It can be really difficult to push back on people in a work scenario, particularly if you are listening to this and you're on the agency side, because you're really in a service business at the end of the day, right?
At the end of the day, we're all trauma bonded people pleasers, and that's not going to change. That's what marketing is. Honestly, every single person that I meet like wants to do a good job. They want to please the client and they want to like show them the cool stuff that they can do. So the good thing about saying no is that it's just so powerful because you're not just saying no to say no. The just saying no basically protects your priorities, it maintains your boundaries, and it helps you assert a little bit of control over your time and energy so that you can do things that you absolutely need to do for yourself, for the team, and for the client. So, there's a couple of different reasons that I absolutely love saying no. So, saying no allows you to focus on what truly matters. And that's just ensuring that your time and your resources are dedicated towards the most meaningful tasks and goals. Some of us have very needy clients. Some of us have very clients that barely ask for anything. So the ability to say no ultimately lies in how you're trying to deliver the information and the data that you need to get over to the client and when they ask for things, but also making sure that there's a why behind it. Like, why am I delivering this data? Like, why did you ask this question? How does it matter? And how do I navigate it to a point where it can be actionable?
Yeah.
Outside of saying no, boundaries. This is something I always talk about because basically a clear no just establishes healthy boundaries. It prevents other people from like overstepping or taking advantage of your willingness to accommodate, quote, people pleasers here. So it's just, it communicates that you respect yourself and you respect your limits. No can be healthy. No can say, I only have the technical ability to work on X project. I know some of Y project, but John or Ethan might be more suited for it because if I add this to my plate, it's going to affect project X. So it's a powerful tool in order to essentially make sure that everything that you're outputting is 100% going to be exactly what you want to output.
I love what you're saying about this. I think it's really about people that are listening, maybe, identifying if they have not already, are you a people pleaser? It's really about sort of shifting your whole mindset, because I'll speak for myself, working at agencies and working with clients, you do want to please the clients. You do want to please the team. You do want to be the most effective sort of person in your role. And so the inclination to say yes can actually feel very positive a lot of times because you're just like, well, I'll take it on. Whatever the team needs, whatever the client needs, I'm taking it on. I'm taking it on. But I really love what you said about saying no really allows us to focus on what truly matters because it's just a complete mindset shift. By saying no, maybe that is how you bring the most effective version of yourself to your role and to your team.
Yeah. Saying no also leads to questions too of like, okay, well, why did you say no to this? And it opens up doors of other yes opportunities. So it's never a bad thing to say no. Just don't say too much.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
we can continue to say yes, but just saying no sometimes leads to that curiosity.
I like that caveat. Just don't say too much. How about authenticity and integrity?
Being authentic is actually a huge part in marketing and advertising today because I mean we even hear it on a day-to-day basis. Like authenticity is hard to come by in digital marketing nowadays as we see it in our ads and then also as agencies. Saying no to things that don't align with like your values or your capabilities. You're basically just being honest and authentic with yourself and others. And at the very end of the day, this actually builds trust with clients and authenticity in your relationships with clients. Because if a client continues to hear you say yes on everything, they're not going to trust you when you continue to say yes. If you say no and deliver it with a why or no and give them other options, they know that you're not afraid to say no and that you're looking out for not only, what's best of interest on your team, but also what's in the best interest for their company.
Yeah. And I think that the point about authenticity, particularly in business with brands in agencies, I think that it's really relevant. I can get a little tired of the authenticity conversation in the culture. Authenticity is running at a real premium. right now, which is great, but maybe some people need a little bit more restraint as well. But but I do think that in marketing, in business, I think that these are areas where, traditionally we're a lot more guilty of sort of curating pristine images and sort of coming off in like a very pretty unrealistic way, versus just bringing some sort of reality, some integrity, as you have here, to it. So yeah, love that piece of it. You've got one more heading here in terms of enabling better opportunities.
Yeah. So not only is no just opening all these doors, but no is an opportunity to say yes at something better. It's
Hmm.
about prioritizing, respecting, and empowering yourself to live and work in alignment with like what truly matters. The number of times I get asked to work on several different projects just because they want somebody else's opinion on it or they just want to check on it, there's a really good chance that it's not needed. It's basically not necessarily a waste of my time, but not worth my time because I know the team has it. Saying no, you've got this empowers people. Saying no, this isn't a project that's worthwhile also empowers the client to understand, okay, well then what is worthwhile and starts that conversation, which is so exciting to see when a client understands that you are a expert in your area and you're willing to say, hey, I have this experience. I know this doesn't work. Here's the why. Here's the data. Let's talk about what's actually going to work for your campaigns.
I love this section coming up here because I think that it is just like it's a widespread epidemic, probably in workplaces. We're going to talk about how to be professional and how to be yourself in a professional setting. Yeah. This is probably a part that comes off as fluffy to a lot of people. I would say I think people act weird at work. I think people act robotic and stiff sometimes. It's like people act robotic and stiff, or people like overshare and you're like, you're telling me too much. It's like people have a hard time sort of measuring their themselves in a workplace setting. So talk to me about how to be yourself and be a professional at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question because I see it all the time, especially with people who are just starting out their careers. It's okay to bring yourself to work and bring a little bit of your personality or authenticity. But a lot of the times, and let's just, call it what it is, agencies can suck sometimes. And it's because they've trained people to not think, do exactly as they say, and essentially
Mhm.
like become a cog in the system. But, you know, at the very end of the day, when a client is hiring an agency, they want you to be thought leaders, and not being able to bring yourself to work or being able to bring your authentic self to work can actually hinder your current work and how you present yourself to the client. So honestly, being authentic is like looking at a client and saying, okay, we all know that our goals are here for these campaigns, but what are you trying to achieve? Essentially, like what makes sense for you with your team and your internal goals, and how can I help while making sure that I'm using my experience backed by data and just be candid about it. Usually, when I see people that aren't authentic but are just trying to be too professional, love to have isms. Basically, they love to have sayings. They love to say bottleneck. They love to say EOW. I hate it. And honestly, we all talk like that at some point. It's just making sure that, you're kind of cutting through that and just saying, okay, what are we actually just trying to get done? And can we just really talk about it? Because that will come off to the client as, oh, this person actually knows what they're doing. They don't want to they don't want to hit around the bush, and they actually want to get the work done. So not only that, but it can also be a tool to show the clients that this person knows what they're talking about, and they'll actually tell me if something's going to be great or if it's not going to be great and it's going to hinder all of my campaigns or if it's going to hinder my account. And I can actually trust them because I know that they're not speaking corporate jargon. Some people are so afraid of trying to come off as senior or as a leadership that they'll do what I like to call the lazy talk, where they sit back, they relax, and they start to make their voice sound like this. It almost makes it sound like you don't care and it's wasting your time. And I absolutely hate that because I know exactly what you're doing and you don't sound confident. You sound like another cog in the system. The way that I'm able to be excited about what I do and excited to talk about what I do, that's what clients want. Clients want to make sure that they're hiring the people that are excited about everything that they do on a day-to-day basis, but are also experts and know how to speak eloquently to the data that they see on a day-to-day.
It requires so much confidence too. So much confidence. You have been hired, you have been put in your position because we need you in that position. We need your perspective. There's so much imposter syndrome, I think, kind of swirling around people. I think that's another thing that sort of keeps people in that sort of overly professional or stiff talk, is they're like, I don't want to be found out for who I really am. And I would just say, in my experience, the times when I've sort of brought a more authentic point of view to work, it sort of breaks things down a little bit. It creates stronger connections with coworkers. And also, I feel like great ideas can come from it too, because even if you're saying like, I don't agree with what you're saying there, but what about this? It's just sort of like fodder for the brainstorm, really. Right?
Yeah. It keeps the conversation going. People get more excited when they're able to like let their walls down a little bit and talk authentically, because at the very end of the day, when you become authentic and you start to speak candidly about what your ideas are, you will see who's there to support you and who's there to not support you. And like 9 times out of 10, those people are there to support you and love your ideas and they want you to speak more. That's probably the one thing I tell all of my teammates is that I want to hear more from you. I've heard an idea or two. I want to hear more. You've got great ideas. Keep them coming because I haven't heard a single no.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
don't be afraid to share a bad idea, because we'll just move past that one to a better one. It's what we need
exactly.
to do. A couple of sort of like buzzwords or sort of trending buzzwords here. Thought leadership is a big one, right? People want to be thought leaders. Ownership is the other one that we're going to cover here. They can feel very general. And so I really love that you want to break down sort of criteria for being a thought leader and for taking ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. So being a thought leader is actually just a really big word for just making sure that you're constantly thinking about something, not necessarily something new, but you're always thinking. You're not satisfied with the status quo and you're always challenging yourself, others, the client, pretty much everybody around you to always be better. My favorite quote for 2025 this year is common sense isn't all that common and critical thinking is a skill. I say this all the time to myself whenever I get frustrated when someone can't understand either my level of expertise that I have or have had, or when, you know, it basically comes to why can't they think the way that I think, or why haven't they had that same thought that I have? But honestly, a lot of this comes with time and practice. And it also goes back to understanding how a client thinks, how to talk to them, how they want to be talked to, the level that they want to be talked to. There's clients that love to get super deep into the campaigns and talk about keyword data, where there's other clients that just want very high level, surface level data. And just the way that they want to comprehend it, you have to understand. That's extremely critical for you to question and just to challenge yourself in every aspect of what you do. And to become a thought leader is to essentially make sure that you're able to get into the other person's shoes and think like them and help them think at a next level or another level, or even in a way that they haven't thought before.
Michelle, I feel like a lot of what we're talking about today is really sort of addressing fear that people have in the workplace. Fear maybe to be authentic, fear to speak up. I liked what you said before about people being afraid to raise their hands. Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe how you approach a team member who you think is really good at their job, who maybe has great ideas, but they don't have a big enough voice in the room?
So, honestly, everybody likes to communicate in a different way. So that can either be more one-on-one, a quick Slack message here and there, or maybe they want to be called on so that they do have the opportunity to talk. So generally what I like to do, especially when I find team members who I know are starting thought leaders, is encourage them to speak. Essentially say, how do you want your information to be delivered? And how can I help support that and make sure that your voice is heard? I've also been on the other side with team members where we've had people try and talk over them. And I'm right there next to them to make sure that that person gets their time to speak and knows that their voice is valued. Because after 15 years I've been in marketing, when you find somebody who is just so amazing at what they do, the more you lift them up and the more that you put them on a pedestal that they want to be put on, the better that they become as a marketer, the more that people hear them and the better opportunities that they get essentially within work, within life, within, you know, being in front of a client, whatever they want essentially. And it's really cool to not only showcase them in a way that they want to be showcased, but also give them that opportunity to shine when they probably thought they didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that also, if you've ever been in that scenario where maybe you feel like your voice isn't big enough in the room, and then a team member sort of steps up and sort of supports you, or even just gives you a little alley oop with like, oh, did you hear what he said? It's maybe all the confidence that some people need to sort of stand up for themselves a little bit more too. Michelle, anything else that you want to leave with us today?
I think one of the cool things outside of like raising your hand, saying no, just finding your power because you are an expert in your field is just making sure that, and I always tell my team this, there's always going to be an opportunity out there. It's just a matter of when opportunity and luck strike at the same time that you'll be able to be seen. So it's not like it's always going to happen when you plan it. So continue to do your best work, show up for yourself, protect your time, protect yourself, and make sure that everything that you're putting out is 100% you, 100% authentic, 100%, something that you want to stamp your name on. Because somebody's going to see that one day and say, that is the person that I want to lead my next team.
I love it. Michelle, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt.
That was Michelle Rose, the Managing Director of Client Leadership at Jump 450. And if you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.